Rich dad offers $10,000 to teacher to pass son. What she did shocked everyone. Sarah stood at her desk, the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders. A dull ache throbbed in her temples. The glow of her computer screen illuminated the chaos of papers strewn about. Lesson plans, exam papers, and the stark reminder of the upcoming final exams. The affluent suburb of Oak Ridge was a world where education was revered, and where the pressure to succeed could crush anyone who stood in its way. Just that morning, she had received a phone call that would turn her life upside down. $10,000, she whispered to herself, disbelief coursing through her veins. It was a staggering amount, a lifeline to secure her son's future. The offer had come from none other than Christopher Donovan, a billionaire with a reputation as vast as his wealth. He had a glimmering mansion on the hill and a son, Jake, whose ability to pass the exam hung by a thread. Sarah had always prided herself on her integrity. I can't just pass him for money, she thought, clenching her jaw, but the pressure crackled in the air, igniting doubts. Her colleagues, eyes widening at the prospect of funds for the struggling arts program, encouraged her to consider the offer. They viewed it as an opportunity, a ticket to solve their own financial woes. Each enthusiastic murmur was like a pinprick against her conscience. As the walls of her classroom seemed to close in, it struck her Jake was more than just a privileged kid coasting on his father's fortune. She had seen glimpses of the pain tucked away behind his eyes, the struggles, the isolation. Then there was Christopher, a complex man, once a school champion turned CEO, now a figure shadowed by tragedies from his past. The rumors echoed, whispers of losses that haunted him, driving his obsession with Jake's success. It was a frightened father, gripping desperately at the thread of hope that was slowly unspooling. Anxiety coiled around her chest as she peered out the window. In the distance, she could spot the Donovan estate, its grandeur stark against the ordinary homes surrounding it. What was a $10,000 price tag really for? A second chance for a father, or a nefarious bribe to safeguard a reputation? The ticking clock in her classroom ticked louder with each passing second, each tick a reminder of the expectations crowding in on her. In the still of the night, anonymous messages had begun to arrive, each one cold and menacing. "Do what's right, or face the consequences," they taunted, sending chills racing down her spine. As she dove back into her thoughts, the late-night quiet turned heavy. Her heart raced as a new message pinged into her inbox. It wasn't just an ultimatum. This was a clue, a hint that could unravel everything she thought she knew about Christopher. It felt like uncovering the dark web of tragedy binding a father to a son. What did she believe in? Integrity or survival? As Sarah hit the read button, the answer seemed poised on the edge of discovery, each word echoing with implications. No matter her choice, the stakes would change everything. For Jake, for her, for the lives intertwined in this web of pressure and expectation. The clock ticked, the tension simmered. She was at the precipice of a decision that could shatter lives or spark a chance at redemption. Antes de continuarmos com essa história incrível, preciso te fazer alerta importante. Muitos inscritos têm relatado que o YouTube removeu suas inscrições sem aviso. Dá só uma conferida rápida no botão vermelho aí embaixo para garantir que você ainda está inscrito no canal. Não quero que você perca nenhum conteúdo exclusivo que vem por aí. E já que você está, aí, deixa aquele like poderoso que me ajuda muito com o algoritmo. Ah, e me conta nos comentários de qual cidade você está assistindo. Adoro conhecer cada pessoa incrível que faz parte dessa comunidade. Sua participação faz toda a diferença. Vamos interagir. Sarah hit red on the message, her heart hammering in her chest. The words blurred momentarily as dread filled her. This isn't just about Jake, it said. It never was. Your son, Samuel, he's involved. Remember that day. Remember who you are. A cold wave of shock cascaded over her as she felt the room spin. What day? What had Samuel to do with any of this? Confusion twisted in her gut. Her breathing quickened. She felt trapped, the walls of her classroom turning into a cage, each breath growing heavy with implications. Jake needed help, that was all. That was the reason for the offer. But now it felt like she was standing on quicksand, her entire foundation crumbling beneath her. Samuel, she whispered, her voice a trembling echo of a mother's worst nightmare. Her son, with his bright smile and easy laughter, had he been pulled into something darker? The late-night conversations in hushed tones, the friends hanging around that wealthy neighborhood. Had she truly been blind? The walls felt like they were closing in on her as she frantically scrolled through Jake's message again, searching for clarity. It wasn't there. Just a looming threat, hanging heavy in the air. She could almost hear the echoes of her colleagues, rallying behind the bribe. None of them knew what she was wrestling with now. Before she could drown in her thoughts, the sound of the school bell sliced through the silence, jolting her back. Students poured into the hallway. Laughter and chatter ricocheted off the walls. She watched as Jake strolled in, a stark contrast to the storm brewing in her mind. The adrenaline surged as she caught a glimpse of him. Was it guilt in his eyes? Or something else entirely? "Miss Morgan, are you okay?" Jake asked, his voice laced with concern. She plastered on a smile, fighting the wave of emotions threatening to crash down on her. "Yes, I'm fine, Jake. Just a busy day." But as he shifted under her gaze, uncertainty flickered across his face. There was something deeper locked away beneath the surface, something she might uncover or regret uncovering. "Can we talk later?" he mumbled, hesitating, as if weighing his words carefully. "Yes, definitely," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. But inside, turmoil rolled within her. What could he possibly know? The bell rang again, signaling the end of passing time. Students hurried to class, leaving her alone in the storm swirling inside. She grabbed her phone, her fingers trembling as she dialed Samuel's number, praying he would answer. Please, please pick up. But it went straight to voicemail. Panic surged as she sank into her chair. This wasn't just about passing an exam anymore. This was about her family, her son, caught in a web she had unknowingly woven. Just then, the door burst open and the principal strode in, his face pale. "Sarah, we need to talk. There's been an incident." Her heart dropped. What kind of incident? "There's been a threat made against one of the students," he said, urgency punctuating his words. "It's serious. We need to act quickly." Her blood turned to ice. Who could it be? The answer loomed like a dark cloud. Was it Jake? Or Samuel? Each breath felt like a cut. Everything she thought she knew began to peel away, exposing a raw, unsettling truth. She was standing at the edge of something monumental, and every instinct screamed that the truth was darker than she ever imagined. As the principal filled her in, the implications crashed over her like tidal waves. Each revelation deepened the pit of uncertainty in her stomach, leaving her desperate for clarity. This was no longer just about integrity and survival. It was about protecting her son. And with each passing minute, the stakes escalated. "Wait," she interrupted. "What about Jake?" The principal's eyes hardened. "That's what we have to figure out." Sarah felt her world tilt, crumbling into chaos. Relationships hanging by threads. The truth twisting into something entirely different. What had she stumbled into? The question echoed ominously in her mind, and with it came a shiver of dread, a thread of fabric she had yet to unravel. The story was far from over. As the principal's words hung in the air, Sarah's heart raced. The tension in the room was palpable, thickening like fog. "A threat?" she echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. What kind of threat could possibly connect to Jake or Samuel? Fear clawed at her insides as the principal's face darkened. "Yes, there's been a note found in the boys' locker room. A direct threat aimed at Jake," he explained. His tone grave. "We need to act carefully. This could escalate quickly." "Jake?" Her instinct surged. "But why would anyone threaten him? He's just a boy." The principal nodded, but the concern etched on his face told a different story. "That's what we're trying to understand. It's possible it relates to the exam or something deeper." Suddenly, the loud noise of the fire alarm blared throughout the building, cutting through their discussion like a knife. The lights flickered, then went dark. Panic surged. The once ordered hallways erupted into chaos as students rushed towards the exits, shouting and pushing, their terror contagious. "Stay calm! Stay calm!" the principal shouted, but his voice was lost in the frenzy. Sarah's mind raced. She grabbed her phone, fingers trembling. "I have to find Jake!" With every step towards the exit, a gnawing sense of dread filled her. What if he was caught up in this? She could barely breathe. She fought through the tide of students, edging her way to the boys' locker room. As she neared the door, she shoved it open and slipped inside the dimly lit space. It was eerily quiet. The lockers loomed like silent sentinels, each one taking on a sinister presence. And then she saw it, a crumpled piece of paper on the floor. Her heart raced as she bent down to pick it up. The words chilled her. "We know your secret, Jake. It's time to pay." A shiver crept down her spine. Secret? What could that mean? Was this connected to the $10,000 offer? Was she now entrenched in something much darker than she had ever imagined? "Jake," she called out, her voice echoing in the emptiness. "Where are you?" And then came the sound, a rush, footsteps pounding, but not from Jake. She turned just in time to see a figure barreling towards her, a dark silhouette against the flickering emergency lights. Before she could react, the door swung open and in rushed two boys, their faces pale and frantic. One was Jake. Relief flooded her, but it quickly turned to confusion when she saw the other boy, Samuel. "Mom!" Jake shouted, his eyes wide. "We need to—" But before he could finish, a loud crash rang. From outside, suddenly, the ground shook underfoot, an explosion of sound piercing through the air. Fire! Instinct kicked in. "Get out! We have to—" But as she turned, the world around her spun. A figure, Christopher, Jake's father, burst through the door, his expression frantic. "Get them out! Now!" he shouted, eyes wild. "Why are you here?" Sarah gasped, the truth dawning too late. He wasn't just a father desperate to save his son anymore. In that charged moment, their eyes locked, and she saw something shift. Fear, desperation, and something darker. It wasn't just about an exam anymore. And just as they turned to escape, another loud explosion echoed in the hallway, and the lights flickered one last time before plunging them into darkness. A flash of thought seared her mind. Was Christopher part of this? Was he hiding more than she could fathom? Chaos erupted once again, and Sarah felt the grip of fate squeeze tighter. She had thought she was protecting her family, but now the web was tangled, and the truth continued to slip through her fingers like sand. As screams filled the air, she realized they were standing on a precipice, and behind every relationship, every choice, was a reality that shattered everything she thought she understood. "Come on," she yelled, rushing towards the exits as her heart pounded. But deep down, something told her they were not just escaping a fire. They were running from a truth that could destroy everything they loved. What had just begun as an offer had morphed into a nightmare, and where it would lead them next, nobody could say. As the chaos swirled around them, Sarah's heart pounded like a drum in her ears. She hurried toward the exit, pulling Jake and Samuel along. The echoes of frightened students faded into the background as adrenaline surged through her veins. "Keep moving," she urged, her voice strained. Suddenly, the flames licking at the edges of the hallway illuminated a figure in the distance. A shadowy silhouette, tall and imposing. It was Christopher, his face twisted with panic as he rushed toward them. "What are you doing here?" she gasped, her composure wavering. The flickering lights cast eerie reflections on his skin, revealing an intensity she'd never seen before. "We need to protect him," Christopher shouted, urgency lacing his voice. "There's no time! They're after him!" "Who? What do you mean?" Sarah's thoughts raced, confusion swirling like smoke in her mind. They were running from a fire, dodging threats, and now there was something else, a deeper danger. Before Christopher could respond, another horrible explosion shook the building, sending a wave of heat that forced them to stagger back. Something heavy landed nearby, and the floor trembled. Panic gripped her chest as she turned to Jake and Samuel. "We have to get out, now!" But then, just as they reached the entrance, lights flickered on, illuminating a scene that stole the breath from her lungs. Across the hall, leaning against the crumpled lockers, stood a figure Sarah had never expected to see. It was Oliver, Samuel's best friend, eyes wide with fear. But it wasn't just his fear that sent chills down her spine. It was the blood stained on his shirt. "Oliver?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "What happened?" With a trembling hand, he gestured to something behind him. There on the ground lay a deli knife, glinting ominously, its blade smeared with crimson. "They're after us, Miss Morgan. They know about the note. Jake's in danger." For a moment, the world shifted on its axis. "The note?" she echoed, struggling to comprehend. "What do you mean?" Oliver's eyes darted around them, paranoia etched into his features. "The threats! Jake was supposed to pay. They wanted him to quit the team. Or," he choked on the words, his fear spilling over. A cold realization washed over Sarah, shattering everything she thought she understood. This wasn't just about an exam, or even a bribe. "What are you talking about?" But before Oliver could respond, chaos erupted again. A loud bang echoed from the hallway, and then silence. The kind of silence that made the air heavy. They turned to see a group of kids emerging from the shadows, their faces obscured under hoodies, eyes glinting maliciously. "I told you we'd find you," one of them sneered, stepping forward, revealing a menacing smile. "Jake Donovan, it's time to pay your dues." Jake stepped back instinctively, and Sarah felt a surge of protectiveness. "Get away from him!" she yelled, but the group advanced. In the middle of the chaos, her eyes caught Christopher's. For the briefest moment, she saw something flicker behind his neatly composed facade. Was he hiding something deeper? "Run!" Christopher shouted, pushing Jake toward the exit as he stood in a protective stance. "Get out, now!" But Sarah held her ground. Heart racing, the kids crowded closer, their laughter echoing against the smoke-filled walls. She could feel it in her bones. This wasn't some typical schoolyard bullying. There was malice here, and it ran deeper than she could have imagined. Just then, amidst the tension, Jake looked back at Sarah, his expression filled with desperation. "Mom, I can't leave you." And in that moment, lights flickered above them, and one of the hooded figures pushed past the others, rushing toward Samuel. "Aren't you going to protect your brother?" they spat, voice dripping with venom. Samuel's eyes widened, and he instinctively stepped in. Front of Jake. "Don't you dare touch him." But it was too late. The damage was already done. The truth weighed heavy in the air, like a dark omen, drawing all eyes to Samuel. For the first time, Sarah noticed that Samuel's expression had changed, a flicker of something darker flashing behind his bravado. A secret, buried deep, was threatening to rise. "Samuel, what do you know?" The words slipped from her lips before she could stop them. But before he could respond, another explosion rocked the building, shaking their world again. Cries of terror erupted around them as flames flickered closer, casting sinister shadows. And just like that, everything she thought she understood shattered. The fight was no longer just for Jake. It was for the truth. The visibility cloaked in flames and confusion. She was hit with a terrible realization. Each moment was tied together like a thread, weaving a tapestry of secrets that would unravel everything. As Sarah watched Samuel's charged face, something in her gut twisted. Could he have been part of this all along? And amidst the chaos, the truth began to slip away faster than they could grasp. They were caught in a web so intricate and dark, and the only clear path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty. What other secrets lurked in the shadows, ready to expose themselves, unraveling everything they thought they knew? Sarah's heart raced as chaos enveloped them. The flames were creeping closer, the acrid smell of smoke thick in the air. Every instinct screamed for them to escape. Yet uncertainty gripped her like a vice. She glanced at Christopher, who braced himself, ready to protect Jake. But as she took in the scene unfolding before her, she sensed a shift, an undercurrent of tension that felt palpable. Then it happened. A loud crack echoed through the hall, and a portion of the ceiling collapsed, dust and debris raining down. In that instant, the chaotic crowd pressed against them, panic igniting frenzied attempts to escape. Sarah instinctively pulled Jake and Samuel closer, her protective instincts roaring to life. "Let's go!" she shouted, pushing against the torrent of students. But amidst the chaos, something caught her eye. Oliver, standing frozen near the fallen debris, face pale as a ghost. "Oliver, come on!" she yelled, but he shook his head, dread in his eyes. "I can't. There's someone trapped inside." "What?" Sarah's heart dropped. "Who?" Before he could answer, A blood-curdling scream erupted from one of the boys trapped behind a toppled locker. Sarah's breath hitched. She turned to Christopher. "We have to help them." "No!" he shouted, desperation rippling through him. "It's too dangerous." But as if to spite his warning, a sharp crack reverberated through the air, and she felt it, the ground quaking beneath her feet. The room spun, and in that split second, life as she knew it tipped over the edge. Out of nowhere, a masked figure barreled toward them, shoving past students, eyes wild with intent. "Jake!" the figure barked, voice distorted. "You can't hide anymore!" Time froze as the world blurred around Sarah. The figure, muffled and obscured, lunged straight for Jake. All thoughts of escape crashed into oblivion as her heart dropped. Instinctively, she leaped in front of her. "Son!" Adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Get away from him!" she screamed. But before she could push him back to safety, the figure ripped off the mask, and time shattered. It was an unexpected face. Samuel, eyes wide with an unsettling mix of fear and anger, his breaths coming in quick gasps. "Samuel?" she stammered, shock coursing through her. "What are you doing?" He stuttered, his voice cracking. "I had to, Mom. They know everything." "It's not a game," she spat, grappling with her disbelief. "What are you talking about?" As flames danced closer, the truth spiraled into view. Samuel was not just caught in a dangerous game. He was at the center of it. He took a step forward, urgency in his voice. "You're in danger too. I didn't want to tell you before, but I'm part of this." Every word felt like a punch to her gut. The choices they made, offering bribes, threatening notes, swirled around her like a maelstrom. She looked into his eyes, desperate for answers that were slipping through her grasp. "What do you mean?" Before he could respond, strong hands grabbed her shoulder. "Christopher, we need to get out now," he urged, trying to pull her away as panic bled into every glance exchanged. But as she turned back to Samuel, flames flickered menacingly behind him. "I can't leave you," Jake cried, caught between wanting to flee and staying with his brother. "Don't argue," Sarah yelled, her heart tearing with each passing second. "We have to go." "No, I can't let them," Samuel began. But the flames roared again, cutting off his words. The look in. His eyes shifted, morphing into something dark, his secrets hanging heavily in the air. "Samuel!" she shouted over the chaos, but he was already backing away, a pained expression contorting his face. I can't protect you all anymore. You wouldn't understand." In that moment, realization crashed down. There was something deeper, a betrayal woven into their lives that threatened to unravel everything. Just as fear gripped her heart, a loud explosion erupted outside. Bursting through the doors, scattering the shadows. "What was that?" Jake gasped, eyes wide with terror. "Don't look back," Christopher shouted, shoving them toward the exit. But Sarah hesitated, torn between her instinct to protect her family and the burning question choking her. As they rushed through the entrance, the flames seared behind them, illuminating the chaos that awaited outside. But it wasn't just a fire. It was a beacon of revelation. What had Samuel meant by part of this? They stumbled into the open air, the world alive with screams. Confusion reigning amidst the distant blare of sirens. And as she turned to Samuel one last time, the question burned in her mind. What dark secret had he unearthed that could change everything they believed? The truth hovered just beyond reach, a specter lurking in the shadows they had all tried to escape. This was far from over. The web wasn't just tangled, it was a trap, and unveiling it could mean exposing a darkness that threatened their very lives. As the chaos unfolded around them, Sarah barely kept her footing. The acrid smoke clawed at her throat as she turned back to Samuel, desperation clawing at her insides. "What do you mean you're part of this?" The question screamed in her mind, weaving between fear and disbelief. She needed answers, now. But before Samuel could respond, a loud crash echoed through the hallway, sending sparks flying. The sudden explosion was deafening, debris raining down around them. Panic surged through the crowd as students screamed, scattering in all directions. Sarah instinctively grabbed Jake's hand tighter, pulling him closer. "Stay with me," she shouted over the din. The flames roared behind them, threatening to engulf everything. But inside, her heart raced with something much more intense than fear. She sensed a dark truth lurking in Samuel's words, something he hadn't yet revealed. Now, there wasn't time for hesitation. "Samuel!" she screamed. "You can't just leave us in the dark!" "Mom, He started, but his eyes darted toward the advancing hooded figures. "I have to protect you!" The chaos thickened like fog, swallowing every ounce of clarity. Then, in a shocking twist, the crowd parted, just enough for another figure to emerge from the shadows. The last face she ever expected to see. It was Oliver, bloodied and bruised, his expression a mask of panic and desperation. "Sarah," he gasped between breaths. "You need to know, there's something you don't understand. It's bigger than just these threats." "Bigger?" She struggled to process his words. "What are you talking about?" Seconds before Oliver could explain, the sound of sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, piercing through the noise of the crowd. But the intensity of the situation reached a boiling point when, without warning, one of the hooded figures lunged forward, shoving Oliver aside. Sarah watched in horror as the figure whipped their arm, sending a sharp object clattering across the floor. A bloody dagger skittered to a stop, stopping inches from her feet. "Everyone is complicit," the figure snarled, and in that moment, everything slowed. It was as if time had frozen while they grappled with the implications of his words. Everyone's gaze shifted to Sarah, including Jake's. Confusion morphed into accusation in an instant. "Complicit?" she echoed, shaking her head in denial. "What are you talking about?" Suddenly, the masked figure ripped off their hood, revealing a familiar face. It was one of Samuel's friends, Derek. His eyes betrayed a mix of anger and hurt. "You've all pushed him into this. You think you're protecting him, but he's been in the thick of this all along." A chill ran down Sarah's spine. "What? No!" she exclaimed, incredulity bubbling to the surface. "Samuel wouldn't. He's been dealing with us, with everything you've kept from him. It's time to pay, Jake," Derek screamed, venom lacing his voice. In that moment, everything Sarah thought she knew began to shatter. Was Samuel really involved? What had he hidden? As flames surged behind them, illuminating the panic on everyone's faces, she caught a glimpse of her son, who looked just as lost as she felt. "Samuel!" she cried, her heart breaking. "Tell me the truth." With trembling hands, Samuel stepped forward, his eyes heavy with the weight of unspoken secrets. I didn't want you to find out like this, but I've been a part of it all, Mom. I couldn't tell you. They made me." Stunned silence filled the room. Her breath caught in her throat. Everything was spiraling out of control. How could she have missed the signs? As the threat drew closer, Sarah found herself torn between her instincts to protect her family and the gut-wrenching reality that everything might collapse around them. "Samuel," Sarah begged, unable to fathom the implications. "What have you done?" Just then, a deafening roar erupted from the hallway, the pressure building as another explosion shook the ground beneath them. Chairs and desks toppled over, creating a barrier between them and the chaos unfolding. Suddenly, everything shifted. Samuel's expression went from fear to determination. "I can help us escape," he shouted over the growing noise. "But we have to trust each other. I still have friends on the inside." As shock ricocheted between them, Sarah faced a terrifying realization. This was no longer just about survival. It was about secrets, betrayal, and loyalty intertwined in the ways she had never imagined. As she looked into Samuel's eyes, she recognized the fear swirling inside him, a reflection of her own. "Okay," she said, voice steady despite the storm. "What do we do?" But the moment hung heavy in the air, and as she waited for his response, anticipation crackled. Another explosion roared, shaking everything again. Outside, the sirens grew louder, but within, there was a stillness cloaked in the urgency of impending revelation. Whatever would come next could change everything, again. As the chaos erupted around them, Sarah felt her heart racing, a dizzying mix of fear and determination coursing through her veins. The smoke thickened, biting at her lungs. But there was no turning back now. She had to protect her family. "Samuel," she shouted, her voice cutting through the panic. "What do we do?" He looked torn, glancing over his shoulder at Derek, who was watching warily. "We need to get to the gym. It's a safe place." "Then let's go," Sarah urged, grabbing Jake's hand tightly. The group sprinted toward the exit, but the pathway was blocked by the unfolding chaos. Other students rushed past them, their faces painted with terror. In that moment, adrenaline took over, pushing Sarah forward. "Stay close," she directed Jake and Samuel, who nodded, determination solidifying in their eyes. As they rounded a corner, another explosion rocked the building, debris cascading from the ceiling. "Move!" Christopher cried, and they barreled forward, hearts pounding as they dodged the falling shards. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the hall. Sarah turned just in time to see Derek stumble backward, clutching his bleeding arm. "I can't! Derek!" Samuel lunged forward, but Sarah gripped his arm, pulling him back. "No, we can't help everyone." Tears mingled with the sweat on her brow as she faced Samuel. "We'll come back for him. We have to prioritize. Let's go," Jake interjected, his voice shaky but strong. They made it through the doors leading into the gym, which had become a refuge filled with shouting students and concerned teachers trying to keep order. Panic ebbed just slightly in this relative safety, but Sarah knew it wouldn't last. "Mom, what's happening?" Jake's voice trembled as he looked around, eyes wide with confusion. "I don't know, sweetheart, but we have to stay strong," she said, forcing a smile. Samuel stepped forward, urgency etched into his face. "There's something I have to tell you all." The tension tightened in the room, silence settling as everyone turned to listen. "I've been involved with Derek and his crew, but I didn't have a choice. They had dirt on us, on our family." The room gasped collectively, disbelief hanging in the air. "You what?" Sarah's heart sank as dread washed over her. "I thought I could handle it. I thought I could protect you," he pleaded. "But by trying to keep you safe, I brought you into this mess." Before anyone could respond, more explosions outside rattled the windows, jolting them back into chaos. "We don't have time for this," Christopher shouted, pulling everyone's focus. We need to organize and figure out how to get out of here. Sarah nodded, feeling a resoluteness surge through her. Okay, let's stick together. We can't let them divide us. With a newfound clarity, they moved to the side door, the last escape route. As they opened it, a roar of sirens erupted outside, blaring like thunder. "Firefighters are here," someone yelled, hope sparking in the room. As they poured out into the open air, Sarah felt the sunlight cut through the smoke, a reminder of life beyond this chaos. Yet a part of her lingered on what Samuel had revealed. Could she truly trust him after all of this? "Mom," Jake's voice pulled her from her thoughts. "We have to go now." Together, they stepped into the disorder, joining the throngs, making their way to safety. But as they neared the edge of the parking lot, Sarah stole a glance back. The building was engulfed, flames reaching greedily toward the sky, shadows dancing where friends once laughed. "Do you think they'll come after us again?" Samuel's voice was quiet, full of uncertainty. Sarah's heart clenched. "We'll be careful, but we'll face it together. We have each other." As they reached safety, she felt a strange mixture of relief and a flutter of anxiety. The darkness of that building wouldn't follow them forever, or would it? The weight of what lay ahead pressed on her heart as she pulled her family close. Secrets and dangers may have threatened to tear them apart, but through it all, they had each other. Somewhere, deep within, a flicker of hope ignited. Maybe they could rebuild. But beyond that flicker, shadows still loomed. What other truths lay hidden in their lives? And with that question hanging in the air, the pieces of their lives scattered like ashes in the wind, waiting to be swept back together, depending on how brave they dared to be. Now, before you dive into your next adventure, it's time to take action. You need to hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss out on more stories that will leave you breathless. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm and keep us bringing you these exclusive tales. Flood the comments with your theories and reactions. We want to hear all your thoughts. And don't forget, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know how this all wraps up. Don't wait another second. Your support makes all the difference.